Afternoon, everyone. We're excited for you to be joining us today for our 11th Growth Hour webinar from Shed Advisor. And today's topic is about selling with process. My name is Rebecca Bradley Ray, and I will be your moderator for today. And if you have any comments or questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to enter them into the chat box at any time. We're going to have a Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So for those on the phone, you can just unmute and ask us directly at that time. Now, let me introduce our host for today. Steve Byler is a certified speaker and coach with Maxwell Leadership and a certified EOS implementer who assists leaders and leadership teams in getting clear with their vision in order to get more of what they really want from their business. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, Rebecca. And great to be with all of you guys today. And I'm especially delighted for the guest that we have on today, Loren Miller, and he's migrated around the country. But I'm happy to say that he's back in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And we have worked together in the past, so we know each other quite well. Let's just put it that way. But Loren is a certified full focus coach and has worked in the shed industry, has worked in nonprofits, and has worked in a lot of different spaces. And he's delivered sheds too, for some of you who care about that. So he knows the grit and grind of getting out there and actually putting a shed on the ground, keeping customers happy. But he's also been largely involved in sales in the shed industry and related industries as a sales leader, and has seen significant growth under his leadership in sales organizations. So Loren, it's a real honor to have you here with us today, and look forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here. And you just had to bring in that shed delivery piece of it, didn't you?
Oh yeah, and
That's what got me started.
We won't tell any specific stories around how many times you delivered sheds and some of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep that as just personal secrets here. Okay,
like
but you're here today with the Shed Advisor, and at the Shed Advisor, our mission here is just to provide good content for leaders in the shed industry to help them be smart, healthy executives, because smart, healthy executives are the ones who deliver results. So are you on board today, Loren, to help us get these executives, people in the shed industry, get them smart and healthy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because when we win, we all win together, right?
Yep.
Better to have great, smart competition than, what's the alternative? Let's not use those words. So Loren, go ahead and share your slide deck and kick us off here today.
All right. Let me get this shared over here. Okay, you should be able to see the slide deck.
There we go. Shed Sales Process Builder, close with confidence.
All right, so officially good to see everybody, or some of you I can't see, that's okay, but good to have everybody here. And it's ironic, so Steve already alluded to, he and I have worked together a lot. And I don't know if he remembers this, but early in my sales leadership career, I was the sales guy first and foremost, and then I was the sales leader as well, that was famous for winging it. And I had some colleagues that were pushing me hard to build process and to build policies, and I kicked against that for a long time. It's like, this is
true. This is true.
Sales teams don't need process. They don't need protocols. You just get out, you follow your gut, you talk to the customer, and you close them on whatever you need to sell them. And anyway, that's a long time ago. It's ironic, I am adamant. If you don't have a sales process, I don't think you're winning. So you might counter that. You might push back on that.
I'm gonna push back. I'm gonna push back more just for the sake of clarity here. Isn't it true that there are people? In other words, almost every salesperson does have a process. It's just, it may not be documented. They may not know what it is, and most of their processes are not effective.
So good pushback. I would say if there are guys out there that don't have a documented process and they are killing it.
Right.
But if you push them on it, they have a process that they follow to a T every single time.
That's my point.
But they will also be winning. So just because it's documented or not documented doesn't mean you don't have the process. But if I could almost guarantee it, if a sales team member came to me and said, hey, I need help closing this one piece of business or unit or whatever it was, this customer, I could almost always go back and find where they missed process,
Yeah.
why they were in that spot.
Yeah.
And
So their process, the process they had and were winging it with,
correct,
missing key pieces.
correct. And
Yeah.
so here's
Broken process.
yes. And so in the light of winging it, a famous guy by the name of Jeremy Cohen said the other day, and I quote, "If you're winging it, you are not winning it." So there you go, Jeremy. Shout out to you. But Jeremy's working hard on bringing his process in place. And I'm convinced guys that are winging it, they're just all over the map, and you cannot win with that. So all that to say, I'd like to dive in and let's get this clicker working. There we go. There are 3 main things that we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to try to give you enough information that you can kind of get started with this, but we are not by any stretch of the imagination getting into the nitty gritties and showing you how to do everything here. But I at least want to help you see that there are some basic things that you can do to start working down this line. We're going to define what's current reality. We're going to establish the non-negotiables, and then we're going to document and train. So each one of these we'll dig into, and we'll kind of unpack those as we go. And Steve, please push back, give, bring questions, clarity, whatever you need to along the way. And you guys that are watching, listening, you can throw those questions into chat as well, and we'll unpack these as we go along. So I love interaction. Steve, I'm going to leave that up to you to navigate how we do that, but we'll get into this.
Yeah, and I'm just going to note, if you're on this call and you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and Rebecca will moderate those, bring them in at an appropriate time. Sometimes it'll be interruptions. Sometimes we'll save those till the end, but feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat box at any point.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. So the first one is define the current reality. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take each one of these. And as you notice, I like 3s, and I'm going to talk more about that as we go along. But let me do a little jab at salespeople. Salespeople, me included, we tend to get pretty scattered. We get confused easily, and we like to have things simple. So keep it dummy proof. If you want to win and scale a sales team, keep it as simple as possible. 3 is probably the minimum. 5 is probably the maximum. So if you're looking at bullet points and steps, try to keep it as basic and simple as possible. And I would rather go deeper than I would wider. So I would rather keep it really, really tight and concise. And then as you need to drill deeper for clarity, you just drill deeper. But a sales team member can remember the general process much, much better if you have 3 to 5 points. And so we're gonna dig into that a bit here. Okay.
And
so
just to clarify,
yes.
Can I just clarify something, Loren? So You're talking about the kind of timeline process from greeting a customer, or even the process preceding that, to the close. You want that process to be in 3 to 5 specific steps, and they can go deeper rather than going to 7 steps in the process.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
and it's just you're able to wrap your mind around that.
100%. So and a good clarifying thing that you brought up there. So if you look at company process, if you're looking customer facing on your website, company process, that may include some build and delivery pieces to it. And so you might just have in the sales piece of that might be 1 or 2 steps in the overall company process. But I still stand by 5 is max.
Yeah.
And then as you take the sales team, when a customer comes in front of you, and when I look at this, I'm saying from the first touch point of the salesperson to the customer, that's when your sales process starts. I'm not talking marketing side,
right,
or ops side. I'm just when salesperson gets in touch with a person, customer, all the way to close. What's that process? And then again, 3 to 5 steps. You can easily remember that. All right, so define the current reality. What you're going to do here is you're going to list the current steps to completing the sale. I hope, anyway, that all of you on here have sold something, have closed something, or your teams are closing things. So it means that there is something that is currently working, or there's There's something that's being done right now. Could be totally trash, say it that way. It could be pretty good, but go ahead and just document everything that you have right now. And this will give you kind of a baseline to start from. And then you're going to highlight what should be preserved. Look at those things. Well, now I'm getting into the weeds a little bit more. Highlight what should be preserved, and then find the gaps that are hindering the sales experience. So highlighting what should be preserved is going to be, these are the key things that this is success. This is what's driving towards our close. And then the gaps, you're going to start uncovering. This is where it falls apart. All right. So what does defining current reality look like in the list, the current steps to completing the sale? How do you interact with your client? Some of you guys are going to have phone calls that are coming in. Some of you guys are going to be generating leads from the website, and you have outbound phone calls. And some of you are going to have people walking into your location. So how do you interact with your customer? And what's the ideal for that? Is it better on the phone? Is it better in person? I have yet to find a sales guy. There may be one or two out there that would prefer a phone conversation over in person, but most people like in person. And so usually your success rate goes up when it's in person. Is that always the key? Probably not, but determine what's working for you right now. How do you interact with your clients? Phone, in person, whatever that is. Now you have to adjust accordingly as you build out your process. How do you decide which product to offer? What does this look like? Is it based on what the customer told you? They walk in and they say, I need a 10 by 12 garden cottage, and I need it in red. Great, I've got one in the back corner over here, and the price is X. Can I sell it to you today? I mean, that's a lot of salespeople go that route. So how do you determine that? Just write that down. Right now, we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for what is current reality. And then what are the steps that close the sale? So at the end, what do? Do you generate the quote? Do you email it to them? Do you hand it to them in person? Do you tell them to come back when they're ready? What do you do right now in this closing the sale? And then you're going to highlight what should be preserved. And now here's what you're going to be looking for. In that current process, or in that current line of steps, what aligns with your company vision? So I'm gonna insert here. I'm thinking and talking from a perspective of company that's vertically integrated. You've got a sales team, you've got your delivery components, your drivers, all this is part of it. And this is kind of all in line with that. However, I know there are folks on here that you may be an individual contributor as far as you're a dealer, you have sheds that you're selling on a lot for somebody else, whatever that looks like. So this vision thing may not necessarily apply to you, but look for how does this overarching alignment to who you want to be, the company you're representing, what does that look like? Make sure that what you're doing here aligns to that vision. Look for the things that work well. So when you do these things, does it bring success? Do customers walk away? What are the things that set you apart? What are you doing as a team that the company down the street might not be doing? What is something about you that customers like? So what are those things? You're looking for the key things that you say, this is important, and I want these to stay in my process, because if we do, it brings a sale. An example of this is if you do 90% of your closes in person and you have 80% of your leads are from the website, one of your key things may be bring that person to your location. So that when they're in person, I close better. So that needs to be a key piece in your process. I need to bring them on site, because once they're on site, I can close. Now, I'm not going to get into all the nuances of how to do that, but that might be something you want to look at and say, this is super important. I don't know why my clicker keeps not working. All right, there we go. And then find the gaps hindering the sales experience. So you may see them. Obviously, as you start writing them out, you might, goodness gracious, I never even saw this before. I didn't realize here are the gaps, or these are misaligned. I'd ask for the sale before even understanding exactly what's going on. So here are some things that you may look at that are hindering the sales experience. Are you asking key questions to fully understand? Are you presenting the correct solution? And are all the stakeholders present to make the decision to purchase? This is really trying to figure out, how do you now connect with your customer? How do you actually get to the core of what they're trying to do? Are you even presenting the right solution for them? Are the right people in the conversation? I mean, there's a husband and wife involved, and one or the other is going to be the one making the decision. Are they present? Sometimes it's business owners, and they send the office manager out there or whatever it is. Who is the one making the decision? Are they present? So look for things like this that you say that might be hindering my sales experience, my sales conversion, and ultimately my revenue.
Okay, can I just comment here a couple things
Yes.
before you move on to the next one, Loren? So
Yes.
when we describe this, the importance of kind of defining the current reality, there's a sense in which what you're doing is noting what we're actually doing, what's actually happening, and then working to look at what you're doing. And often we lack the self-awareness to kind of know what we're actually doing in the process. So I'm just gonna toss in. I don't know if you've thought about this or maybe you're using it, but there are so many tools nowadays that you can use to help you with that. And AI is one of those, right? So you could use like a little Claude device if you're a sales guy and just record your conversations. And you have to be careful about what your state laws are for recording conversations. But in Virginia, for example, as long as one person gives permission, and that's you yourself, you're fine. And then you can dump that conversation back into AI and ask it questions. So then you actually see in a transcript what you're actually saying. And it's a little alarming sometimes when you have to observe what you just said to this potential customer. And you say, yeah, I might walk away from that conversation myself if I was on the other side. Right. So I think you're onto something, that we have to be crystal clear about what's actually happening, which requires a significant level of self-awareness, or it requires some level of tools to make us face the reality of what's actually happening.
Yes, absolutely. And I like that you brought that into the current reality piece of it. I use that more on the tail end, on the coaching side of it, and the training too.
Right.
Because now we can bring alignment to it.
Right.
But I like that. I like that on the front end as well, because that is a good way for you to capture what's going on. And on a side note, I think every sales conversation should be recorded. It's just they're again one of those things I kicked back for a long time, but it is extremely beneficial.
For training and accountability, right?
Training and accountability. Even as a sales guy yourself, you get off of a phone call and it's just like something wasn't quite right. You can go back and listen to that, and you can pretty quickly pick up where it fell apart and why. You can learn from that. It's a huge tool for that. Okay, so now we're moving into establishing the non-negotiables, and what I mean by this is what we're now building out the process that you need. So what you're going to do inside of this is you're going to be looking at determining the need, determine the solution, and determine the outcome. And so what we just got done doing was, what's the current reality? We're looking for the gaps. Where's it falling apart? Where are the good pieces? And now we're going to start building this out. And I am actually saying, if I was helping you in a sales process, I would do everything I could to get you to 3 main points in your sales process. Need is a section, the solution is a section, and the outcome is a section. You can name those whatever you want, but inside the need, if you do those things correctly, you will have gone from ABC. So from the initial contact to the close. So what is that? In determining the need, is the request aligned with the company product offering? And this is really, some of these first questions are really about qualifying this customer and understanding what's going on. So example is, they come in and they look for a pergola on their back patio, and all you do is portable buildings. There's no need. There's no, I mean, there's a need, but there's no fit. So there's no point in you trying to sell them a shed. There's misalignment. You won't win that business. So they're unqualified, but you have to have a means for which you go through systematically on each person that's coming in to say, is this a qualified person worth my time or not? Are the budget expectations reasonably aligned? Now, I'll tell you, from a management's perspective versus a salesperson's perspective, there's some gaps here. A salesperson says, well, I was $200 over budget, that's why they didn't buy. The manager says, yeah, whatever. If you can't close them on a $2,000 difference, then there's something wrong with your sales technique. So there's usually a little bit of discrepancy around this budget, but you do need to just determine that, figure out what, as a sales team, are you going to say, this is reasonable? Is it within 25% of their stated budget? Is it 50% of their stated budget? What is that? That says, we're going to give this a swing and we're going to go after it. And we're going to actually say, this is a qualified customer and I expect my team to work with. Who are the decision makers? We already touched on that a little bit, but there again, there's no sense in you moving on through your pitch if the decision maker is not present. So make sure that decision maker is present inside in that conversation. If they're not, then we go into how do you address that and how do you bring that person in? There's multiple ways. I'm not going to get into that now. There's multiple ways to do that. Another thing that you may be looking at in this section is their location. Are they in your service area, especially for inbound calls? So just making sure that you can service that area and it's within reason. So this is the need. This is qualifying. This is basically just looking for, it's sort of high level, but you want to know enough about this customer to say, look, this makes sense for us to do business together. You're kind of setting the agenda for how you're going to work together. I often use the term something about, or the terminology that, we're trying to make sure that we're a good fit for you to make sure that we can actually help you get what you need. And so we just have to kind of have a little conversation around, are we good for this? Are they qualified or not?
Yeah. And I would just note here, Loren, I think a lot of let's say early stage salespeople who don't have a lot of experience often don't think about this part of the sales process, but you can spend an enormous amount of your available time and energy on people who are not, you will never actually be able to fill their need. And while it might feel good because you're doing something, you're actually wasting your time and energy when it should be focused on serving clients who actually have a need that you can fill.
Yes.
Now, you might need to reframe what their need is and show them how your product can fill their need, be a great solution for their need. But then of these three, I'm going to say the middle one is probably the one that's most often ignored early in the conversation, the budget question. And also, I would also say it's also the one that has the most elasticity to it.
Yes.
In other words, they say, well, I don't want to spend, I'm $2,000 is my budget. And, you talk to sales reps all the time. Those people walk out of there having spent $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on a shed. That is just a malarkey number that's tossed out. It's typically meaningless. And I'm a great illustration of this. I bought a little tractor for my mountain property, right? And I had a quote budget. And when I actually signed the deal on my tractor, the tractor was 2.5 times the budget I had given in shopping. And you think about, why does that happen? Sometimes it's because of the way they're able to manage your cash flow for you. So, it's the rent to own suddenly says, oh, I don't have to use all my cash and I have a no risk deal. And so you tweak the budget at that point. Or by the way, we have a great financing option right now. And, if we can get you approved for that, see what your budget is based on that. Suddenly you don't have to sell your investments, or tap your home equity line or whatever. This budget number can go away through a fantastic sales process.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you bring up with this, so there are people that come in and they give you a legitimate hard budget they cannot go over. And then there's other people that are just giving you a budget number that's just kind of whatever. And you're right. You'll see them. I've seen this multiple times. They'll spend double of what they said they were going to spend.
Yeah.
The primary, and I want to just dig into this just a little bit. The primary reason you bring up budget in the beginning is it's on everybody's mind.
That's right.
And if you can at least somehow put that number or that question to bed, they'll follow you through the process much better.
That's right.
And then the next steps of your process are all about digging in deeper. And I'll get to that in just a second, but they're going to be about digging in deeper to find out what's really going on under the surface. They came to you to buy a 10 by 16 or whatever it is. They didn't. They told you they wanted a 10 by 16, but that's not why they came to you. They came to you for something else.
That's right.
And what I mean by that is there's a problem and a pain and a situation that's going on that they're trying to fix. And they think this 10 by 16 is going to solve that pain. And your job is to get to that pain point and help them solve that pain. And if it's a 10 by 16, great. If it's a 12 by 20 or 14 by 60 or whatever it is, I don't care. Fantastic. But you need to help them go through that. And they'll go through that better with you if they take the budget thing off their head, off their mind, out of their head in the beginning.
Yep.
Okay, so now we are in the determine the solution. And this is where it really starts getting fun. So you've kind of done the preliminaries, you've gotten that out of the way. Now you're digging in. Fully understand the issue by asking deep questions. So I just got done talking about that. Dig in. I'm amazed at how many salespeople will just take it at face value. And, oh, you need a 10 by 16. Okay, great. I've got one here in the back corner. I'm going to go sell you that one. And then they can't figure out why the guy didn't buy it because it was $100 more expensive than the guy down the street. All right, we've got to dig in, figure out what's going on. What is really driving this person to come in? What is that pain point? The second point here is why is it important to make a change? That is critical. That goes back to what's that current reality for the customer. What got them out of bed this morning, got them in their car and had them drive to your location? There was a pain somewhere that was big enough, bad enough, severe enough to make them do that. What was it? And you need to find that. And then you need to help them solve that. And how do you build this into your process so that you can have those questions being asked? There again, this is, you could get it 3 or 4 layers deeper inside of this yet. Just unpacking that, getting down to scripting and how do you talk to the people. But you've got to get to the core of why did they get here? Why is it important for them to change? If they don't buy that building today, how are they going to manage the pain that they've got currently? Just all kinds of things around that. And then confirm the solution is perfect for the need. This is where a salesperson really needs to start saying, let me back up and give you this as context. My belief is a salesperson is a guide to the customer. You're guiding them to that end result, and you're leading them through that process, and you're leading them to a solution. It is your job to help them make the wise decision. And that may be upselling, downselling. I don't care. I want you to solve their problem to the best of your abilities. It's going to make them happy for the next 10 years. So that should be your mindset. So confirm the solution is perfect. And then when you have that level of connection with them, you understand them to that level, and you built a perfect solution. They might say, I want a 10 by 16. And you say, you really need a 12 by 20. And they say, I want my doors on this side. And you say, you really ought to have it on this end. And you ought to put another door here for what you're trying to do so that you can actually be happier using it. You're guiding them through that to make sure it's all the perfect solution. And when you're done and you can show them all of that, they will pay you more for it. And they can't stop talking about you. You'll see them in the grocery store and they'll be high-fiving you. They're ecstatic about how you helped them get that done, compared to you sold them what they wanted, and a year later, they're like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done because it was a mistake. They didn't know better. Nobody helped them actually figure that out.
Yeah.
So,
And can I just insert something here, Loren?
yes.
Another big part of successful sales is the relationship component. In other words, people buy from people they like, know, and trust.
Yep.
And if you're a salesperson who in the first 15 minutes of a client interaction, you are talking 80% of the time about your product and about the company you work for, most potential clients will not like you. If you are asking great questions and they're talking 80% of the time, the chance that you're going to close that deal has exponentially skyrocketed because they feel
Absolutely.
heard, understood, uh, and now they're going to trust you as you guide them toward the solution. So
Absolutely.
I think this is queuing you up to be sure you ask all the great questions early in the process. So you're building
Absolutely.
this kind of connection with the client. The client is heard, understood, and known. They've already got a different perspective on what they want just because of the great questions you've asked.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because we all like talking about ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a few oddballs out there, maybe, but we all like to be asked about ourselves, talk about ourselves. And it's just when you're done with that conversation, you go away thinking, that's a great person. For why? Because he listened to you. All right. So you're spot on. And the second piece I would add to that is the person that is talking the least is the one that's in control of the conversation. The one that's asking the questions is in control of the conversation.
That's correct. And you got to be a leader to do that.
If you're not asking the questions, if you're talking the most, you're losing it. So it's just a fact. Ask questions and shut up. Ask questions and shut up and let them talk and let them talk. And you're going to build rapport. You're going to understand. You're going to learn. And then you can come in, advise, and give them the solution that they need. And they're like, makes sense. Okay. So it's almost that easy. All right. Not quite. Sales is still hard. Don't get me wrong. But let's set ourselves up for the best shot at success as possible. And these are a couple ways to do that. All right, so then determine the outcome. This really comes down to closing it. How do you price and create the order? How do you take and record the deposit? And then how do you fulfill the order? So this first one, how do you price and create the order? I'm astonished at how many times a salesperson will just whip up a quote, hand it over, shoot it off in an email, and say, hey, once you're ready, let me know. Or does this look good? Or whatever, just weird stuff. There's a science to this, and how you present, how you price, how you ask for the sale, all of that goes into. Well, I'm gonna say it this way. There's a certain way to do it, but if you do your process leading up to this and you present that, you already know going into it that they are going to buy today. They know they're going to buy today, or you both know that it makes perfect sense for them to come back in 2 days from now to buy because XYZ, because of the relationship, because of the dynamics and going on, or whatever it is. There's mutual agreement on what this looks like. And now you have clarity on how you're going to actually price, give that order, and take that deposit. So again, I come back to crystal clear communication through the entire process. But getting back to actual process versus sales technique, actual process is if your salesperson doesn't know how to price and how to create the order, then they're going to be floundering. If they don't know how to take the deposit and how to ask for it, they're going to be floundering. And then how do you fulfill that order? Where do you put that? Oh, missed it. So create that process for your team. Let them know how to do it, and then stick to that. The close piece of this, I want to touch on that just a little bit. I've had a lot of salespeople ask me, so can you give me some closing techniques? Can you give me some scripts for closing? And my typical answer is show me your process. And then I'll help you figure out why you're not closing. The manipulative closing tactics don't work. Now, yes, there are ways that you can ask for the sale that are better, but if you do your process well and you follow your process well, it's quite common that they get to the end and they're asking you to take their money. They're like, oh, we're ready to do this. Where do we sign? And it's just building the relationship, understanding what's going on, getting alignment with the their journey, their process, your process, making sure that all these get put together. And a little side note right there. I was just listening to a sales guy the other day, a sales coach actually, and he was talking about your process versus the customer's process. Every customer, known or not, also has their own process for how they buy. My example to that is I will never buy a big ticket item the same day I go look at it. I just won't. I will wait till tomorrow. I don't care how much I like you. I don't care how good you did. I will not buy it until I've gone home and at least talked to my wife about it, slept on it, and I will make my decision tomorrow morning. If you as a salesperson can get that out of me and understand why that is, and you can still have a phenomenal help me through that whole process and win my trust and show me why I need it and all of that, I will be calling you first thing tomorrow morning and giving you my money. But it's just a personal thing of mine that I just it's a thing I put in place. I won't buy the same day. And sometimes it gets in the way, sometimes it saves me. But if you as a salesperson can get that from me and we can get alignment on that, and before I leave you today, I'm going to give you my word. All right, I'm going to sleep on it. I'm going to call you back at 8 o'clock in the morning and we'll do this. But that's bringing alignment to both parties. And now you can move forward. So a little side note, and hopefully that's not throwing wrenches in gears here and confusing things, but when you get that level of connection between you and the customer, this process works phenomenal and your close ratio goes up.
Yeah.
All right, document and train. This is now talking specifically to leaders and of sales teams. Your individual guys, document it, but you're obviously not going to be training people other than yourself. But we're going to talk about how to finalize the process, document that, train, and coach the process. All right, test the flow. Once you've got this kind of laid out the way you think it should work, just run through it top to bottom. Does it work well? Does it transition well? Does it flow well? Does it feel abrupt going from one step to the next step? Do I have my steps in sequence? Just make sure that it all aligns and flows well, just in presentation. And then does it flow and align with the customer journey? I just got done talking about that. Another piece of this could be on the shed side, it might not be as much, but the bigger sheds, garages, cabins, things like that, you will be running into things like funding and permitting and whatever all else you have going on. How does this process align with your customer's journey as they need to go through this phase as well and get things aligned on their side? So make sure that those come together and that there's an alignment in that. And then does it align with your company culture? And what I mean by that is, does this process set you up to sell what your company wants you to sell? If your company's objective is to sell all pre-built units that are in stock, then make sure that this process aligns to that, and that there's language inside of that you solve the customer's problem with a stock unit. So don't let your sales team now go solve that problem with a custom build if that's not what you do. But your process needs to have steps in it, lingo in it, to actually align with that outcome that you need as a company. So that's what I'm talking about here, is aligning with your company culture. Another thing, to me, it's just a given, but are you actually in this process treating customers with utmost respect and courtesy? I think that should be every company's culture, and that should just be part of the process. It's not always, but just make sure that the tone, the personalities, all of that stuff align with who you are as a company. Okay, document and process. Clearly document each critical step, keep it simple and in high-level bullet points, determine the best platform for easy access and use. So I already said, clearly document each critical step. Keep it basic and simple, drill deep as you need to, but you should be able to ask any salesperson, hey, what's our sales process? And they can tell you, boom, 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 boom. There's 3 steps, 5 steps, whatever it is. Okay, so inside of step 1, what do you do inside of step 1? Boom, 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 3 more steps. Okay, so they should clearly get that. As you get deeper and deeper, they may start stumbling and not remembering it all. But you want them to, at least at a high level, to know I'm in phase 1, 2, or 3 with this customer. And I'm stuck in phase 2. Can you help me? So we're going to drill deeper inside of this and figure out what's going on. But if you have them, give them 10 steps to try to figure out, it tends to get messy and convoluted. So keep it as simple and basic as you can. And then determine the best platform for easy access and use. So this could be, some of you guys might just want to print out a PDF and put it on your desk or something for the high level stuff. You might have a Google Drive somewhere that's got this stored and it's documented on a Google Doc. I want to put a little plug in here. One of the companies I'm working with actually uses a company called Playbook Builder. I have no idea what their cost is. I just know they use it and it's a phenomenal tool. This is going to be for a little larger company probably that's got multiple team members, but you can put any kind of process in there. You can do video clips inside of it to actually show screenshots of how to do stuff. You can put documents in there. You can set up training inside of that. You can watch how many of your reps actually watch the videos, to what extent. You can do testing inside. It's phenomenal. So if you want something for hosting your processes, I love that one. And then you're going to train your team. All right, sales leaders, pay attention. I was one of these guys, and it does not go well. You just throw the book at them, at your sales rep, you spend about a day with them, and then you turn them over to just go figure it out. It does not work well. So set aside intentional time to train your current team members. So the guys that are there right now, they probably have their own way of doing it, and it's probably not consistent with the guy next to them. So it's going to take some time to get everybody on the same page and actually understand what this process is, and then execute it. So set time aside. It might be an hour, it might be half a day. It depends on your team size and what your process looks like. But actually go through it, show them why it's important, show them how they connect, show them how it's good for the customer. Just walk them through all of that. And then you're going to monitor your sales interactions and coach to the process. You're going to be listening to phone calls, listening to conversations, and just watching to see how the rep is actually aligning to this process. Where they go off track, you're gonna coach them to bring it back. It's just a continuous process that you're going to go through to hold them to this. And then you're going to incorporate it into your onboarding training. So any new rep coming in, you should already have a process for that, for your onboarding. And this should be a part of that whole onboarding training, so that it's a given. Every person coming in knows what this process is, and they use it, and then you coach and hold them accountable to it. When you do that, your team will have confidence and success. And I've seen it over and over. Team member just goes out and he kind of wings it and he's floundering around. Once you give him a clear track to run, then he knows what the next step is. He knows, I start here, and when I'm done with this, I go to this step and this step and this step. And it's just, he knows what's next. So another little sales tactic is, when you're in step 1, your job is to sell step 2. When you're in step 2, your job is to sell step 3. And it's that simple. You're just going step by step by step by step. And at whatever point the customer bolts, you stop, you dig in, you figure out what's going on, you backstep, backpedal a little bit if you need to, figure out, but you're always going, now my next step is this, and my next step is this. And when you bring that level of clarity to your sales team, they now know what to do and how to get to the end result.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback on that one, Loren, back to an early illustration you used. If I really, say I have a 90% close rate in person, and I have a 2% close rate on the telephone. And so your process says, I need to get in front of this person. And so your first sales conversation is, how can we get down face to face at my store?
Yes.
Right. And so you make an appointment, or you set a time, or you set a way, and maybe they can't drive. You discover that. So they're not going to come. So now you have two choices. One of them is hire an Uber to bring them out to your store and send them back, because this is your process. Or it's climbing your own car and go out to their place and have a great sales presentation so you can do it face to face. You have to make those decisions.
Yes.
Now, you might decide, whatever the situation is, I've got to just get good at closing on the telephone. I've got to figure that one out, and we're going to train for that. Or we're going to hire somebody else to do the telephone. But you're selling in each one of those steps. And I think that's just important to reemphasize. Every single step is a sale, not as much for the end product as it is for the next step, which makes
Yeah.
selling much easier because you're not selling the thing, you're
Correct.
selling the process step by step by step.
Correct.
Every close is a step in the right direction, but you're moving it along.
Correct. Yep, 100%. And you brought up a good point too with the in person. And what if a person's too far away, they can't drive or whatever that looks like. As a sales leader, equip your team to know how to handle that. What is the plan B? What is the backup to that? Do we hire the Uber? Do they have the permission, the resources to do that? Do we do a video call?
Yeah, which
we
is better than phone.
Yep. So there are ways that you can then do, all right, so if you hit a dead end, here's how you're going to unpack it or get, find a solution around the obstacle. But if you want key success or the best success, it's in person on your lot, you're going to try to sell them on that concept of coming in and figure out how to get that done.
Yeah. And just two other things I want to note here. One is, I think many companies, when they first start thinking process, and particularly then documenting that process, they get so far down in the weeds with what they want to document that they get stalled, never deliver. And again, as an EOS implementer, when we get to helping companies document their processes, we use what we call the 80-20 rule, but we do it in inverse. We say document the 20% of your process that gets you 80% of the results. So start with those 3 steps.
Yes.
Only add bullet points below that as they become clear.
Yes.
Don't think a 15-page sales manual or a 30-page sales manual is what you have to have. Start with the big steps. And then if you have the right people, they figure out the 80% that really only accounts for the 20% of the results.
Yes.
So be sure that you just start high level. Get those, it's like if I want to go to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, first of all, I've got to get to downtown Harrisonburg. I've got to go through Winchester, and I've got to go, through Carlisle. Give me those bench points, and I'm going to figure out an efficient way to get there. But if you're going to give me every turn by turn before I leave, that's going to take you an enormous amount of time. And you're also saying, oh, Steve must be stupid. He can't figure this out. So start with the 20% that gets you 80% of the results, and then just work down from there. Increase the complexity in the smallest degree you have to achieve the results.
Yes. Good, very good point. And I agree 100%. I've seen so many people stalled because they try to get too much detail.
Yeah.
Just start. Three bullet points is better than nothing. Start. And then build out as needed. And then here's where the nuance and the kind of the you're gonna get as much detail as needed to bring results, but you also need enough detail to answer the questions and set your team up for success.
Correct.
And so as your team gets better and better, they're just going to, without even thinking, they're going to do all the little detailed pieces at the bottom, and they're just going to stay high level in their thought process. But you need some of that below built out so that if you run into trouble, you can dig down and see what's going on.
Yeah. So that's where
don't get stuck down in there.
There will be some scripts actually.
Yes.
And it might be high level scripts, a lot of fill in the blanks, but these are words we do always use in our company.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Exactly.
But you probably don't want to start there.
Nope.
Hey, Rebecca, let's go to some questions. And while you're picking one, I just want one other comment. In the companies that I'm working with in EOS, helping them implement, a good operating system for their companies, Loren is also coaching sales teams in a couple of those. And I just want to commend you here, Loren. We didn't have this conversation, but I'm hearing good things from those clients. You're helping them get their sales process pristine, trained, followed by all, and they're seeing results from that. So if you're looking for a sales coach, we're not here selling sales coaching, but that Loren does that. He does a good job at it. And so I'm just commending him. Reach out to him if you need help on these kinds of issues. Rebecca.
Thank you, sir. I was not expecting that, so appreciate it.
That's free.
Alrighty, well, we have several really good questions. The first one here is kind of a two-parter. So it is, what is the best way to ask them for their budget? And also, how is the best way to answer their answer to the budget question?
That's a great question. Budget is always the sticky one for some reason because it is a touchy subject when you're trying to get into somebody's wallet. And you're just going to play with it.
Role play it here. Role play it for me. I'm your guy, Loren.
So typically my first go-to is I'm just going to say, so look, you're coming in here, you're looking for 12 by 20 or you're looking for whatever it is. I'm just curious. What kind of investment are you looking for today? Are you trying to stay, what's that range you're trying to kind of shoot for today? And I don't use the word budget. I don't say, what is your budget? I'm just saying, kind of, what's the range you're trying to look for? That way I know how to better help you and kind of where to point you. And if you start open-ended like that, then often they're going to say something like, okay, so a couple things. They'll probably say something like, I don't even know. I don't even know what these things cost. I have no idea what my budget is. Well, that's not true. They've got some number in their head. So you're going to say, oh, that's fine. I mean, I get that. And you're going to go into, you know what? Kind of what we see on average around here is, a 12 by 16 is kind of a popular seller. And they range somewhere in that $6,000 to $10,000 range or whatever. I'm just making up numbers. And they're going to say, oh goodness, no, I'm wanting to stay more like that $5,000 or $6,000 range. Oh, okay. So somewhere in that $5,000-$6,000 range. Okay, that sounds good. Let's see what we can put together for you. And then you just move on with your process. But you're looking for ways that you can unpack what's in their head. I don't care what the number is. I just want them to admit what's in their head. And now you can start working towards it. And as you build out a solution that's going to be $10,000, five more than what they said, you're going to have little bits of conversation along the way that's going to prep them for that and say, hey, look, it looks like you're going to be here. You said your budget was $5,000, but here's what we're ending up with, and here's why we need this. And you're just going to help them navigate that whole process and help them think through and help them connect the dots. And at the end of the day, they have a choice. Back to yours, Steve, figure out a way to pay for it because they're emotionally tied to it, or take some of those attachments off of it because I don't have the money. Yeah. And you're going to help them figure that out and bring them to the best solution.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, Loren, another good strategy that works if you have the product offerings inside your company is to ask the question, are you anticipating this to be a cash transaction or a monthly payment
yes.
sort of deal? So yes. If they hear $10,000, well, what do you have available payment options? Well, do you want to use your credit or do you want a non-credit, offering that has zero risk? Yes. That takes you to a finance offer or a rent to own option. And those a couple simple questions there, because many people will buy based on a monthly payment. They don't really care what the overall cost is. If they know what they can spend per month, and maybe the solution they're trying to solve is get out of a rent to own space into their own space. And that's the budget they have to convert. So, be open to those kinds of questions as you have the budget conversation.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because that really is, especially in the shed world, the rent to own piece is really a big deal. So that should be one of your first questions is, are you looking to do monthly payments on this? Or are you paying out of pocket? And there's ways that you can ask that as well.
Correct.
But then that kind of gives you an idea. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got another question over here. We've got several that are really good. This one's kind of in a similar vein. So I think you answered some of it, but it is, what are some ways to find out what the customer's buying process is?
That's going to come through conversation and asking them what expectations are. So one thing that I use is, what's their time frame? So if I say, so when are you expecting to use this, or when do you want it in your backyard? What's going on with that? So if you start asking some of those timeframe questions, they start telling you what it is. Then you start asking clarifying questions around that and kind of work backwards. And you start uncovering things that are coming up, that you start getting glimpses into what's in their head and what they're thinking. And then you keep asking clarifying questions, keep asking clarifying questions. I think one big thing for a salesperson in all of this is always be curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. We tend to take things at face value and be terrified of questions because we don't want to offend anybody and we don't want to push them away. And my analogy with that is it might be crude. It hurts less to be rejected on your first date than it does the day before your wedding. Okay, so many people just kind of bit bop along until the day before their wedding, and then the customer walks away and you're rejected at the day before.
You've done a site visit, you've
painful.
done financial approval, you have spent 4 hours with this person, right?
I would,
And you get
yes,
rejected.
I would rather ask the questions, be curious, but be careful you ask the questions. It needs to be about the person. You need to ask it in a caring way. And when they say something, oh, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Well, when you said this, what did you mean by that? Help me understand this. And you'd be amazed at how much they'll just start telling you, and you begin to unpack what they're thinking, what their process is, and kind of what their strategy is for purchase.
Okay, do we have time for another one?
Yep, one quick one.
All right. This one is, how does the sales process change for services versus product?
Great question. My gut reaction is going to be not much. You're still selling something, even though it's a service, not a product.
Yeah.
And you still need to understand what the pain is that drove them to you. You still need to understand how they're going to solve that and how you fit into that solve, and build the connection in the middle of it. And so I would say in a lot of ways it's the same. You're just going to change out some of the pieces in the inside of it, but overarching it's the same.
Yeah, thank you for that, Loren. And I would just add as well, I saw Richard's comments down below, and I know Richard pretty well. He doesn't like the term sales scripts. It absolutely makes him panic, but he likes, and I just lost the phrase. What is the phrase, Rebecca, that he likes? Word
tracks. I'm looking at it here too.
Word tracks.
Word tracks,
Yeah,
yes.
it's really an 80, it's a 20-80 script. In other words, use these terms that gets to this issue as guiding principles. And again, I think that's a very healthy script that a smart person can adapt the concept for the person in front of them. That's a good level of script. Now,
Yes.
a very different person than Richard might actually want you to tell you exactly what he's got to say. Okay, but he's not going to be effective until he's said it 30 times and has his own natural inflection.
Yeah.
So those are the pros and cons and the kind of shifting values of scripts. So thank you all for joining us here today. And in conclusion, I just want to note we are launching at the Shed Expo a Shed sales leader peer advisory group. You'll be hearing more about that going forward. But if you're in leadership and sales, this would be a great group of peers that Loren will be hosting. Great group of peers to hang out together, learn from each other, and Loren coach you through actually getting good results with your specific sales process for your business. And our recorded webinars, again, can be found at Shed Advisor, the doc by Steve Byler on YouTube. There's a phone number you can dial in to listen to this one and all previous webinars as well. So thank you so much for joining us here today, and I wish you all great sales success.